morning, or I guess good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Today we are talking about all things baby boomer generation. So this is if you were born between the ages of 1946 to 1964, roughly. And they are often known as the forever young generation. It's why we wondered if my mom was ever going to retire. She did finally. And it's why I get a lot of questions from millennials wondering if their boss will ever retire. They are often known as the generation that has lived to work. The motto is often, I am what I do. But we have to remember that every generation has three keys of influence that influence each of them. So they are your parents, politics, and pop culture. And so we're going to dive into each of those really briefly here for the baby boomers. And first off, we have to remember that the parents of the baby boomers were often known as builders, survivors, trainers, because they were born or they, came out of World War II. And so the builders, they wanted their kids to have a better life. They because of that, they were builders, survivors, trainers. They became kind of workaholics. They were driven to get ahead. It's why often you see baby boomers as the first in, the last out. And because of that really military mindset, they were taught to save. They were taught to delay gratification. They had a deep respect for hierarchy, authority. You see a lot of baby boomers in the workplace generation that have that very military shift in leadership that you're starting to see a shift in because really the millennials just don't connect to that and the younger generations. But a key with that and their parents is they really value that face-to-face interaction. And because they're workaholics, they really want to earn their way up the corporate ladder. And that live to work mentality means, even after retirement, they're still working, they're still getting jobs. And staying active in that way. So that's all things kind of parents and how they were raised. So next is politics. So a lot going on here for politics for the baby boomers. They had the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Cold War. They had the Civil Rights Movement, Dr. King, Black Panthers, the Women's Liberation Movement. This is where you started to see women more in the workplace. Really role models for women, school teachers, secretaries, nurses kind of came beyond that in the corporate world as well. There was the pro-choice movement. And then really significant, two kind of contrast significant situations was the assassinations of President Kennedy, Dr. King, and Bobby Kennedy. And this is actually a quote from an Iowa State University professor, my alma mater. And he said this regarding the Kennedy assassination. He said, "We heard on the radio President Kennedy had been shot in Dallas. It was November 22nd, 1963. I walked over to my English exam, and I remember my professor had a tiny, teeny transistor radio. He said, 'I'll keep you posted on how the president is doing.' He gave us our blue books, and we weren't in it 10 minutes, and he dropped the radio and just started sobbing. He said, 'Our president is gone.' When the students came back that winter, there was a different feeling on campus. The difference was we had a whole new perspective and we had lost our innocence." And so that was a Iowa State professor said that, Dennis Gathman. And so there was this kind of devastation among the nation in that time with the president, with Dr. King, with Bobby Kennedy years later. But then in contrast to that was the moon landing. And so there was this great excitement and determination to get to the moon. And so it kind of unified in this devastation, it unified the nation to say, we're going to do it. We're going to achieve this great thing. And so the politics in that time were very unique dynamic. And so following that was pop culture. And so on TV, we have shows like Leave It to Beaver. Rock and roll was built really big. You got Elvis, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And of course, the hippie culture, Woodstock was happening. Alongside of that, birth control came out. And so the joke kind of is that the baby boomers wanted free drugs in the 60s with birth control. And now they want free drugs with Medicare. Haha. So interesting, there's a lot with pop culture, with politics, with parents, with the baby boomers. And another interesting fact that I came across was it was said that when the phone and technology started to come out, that the work week would go down to 4 days, obviously because it's more efficient, it's more, effective, you can just get stuff done a lot quicker. And so it's funny to think that now because it came out when the baby boomers were in the prime of the workplace. And what do we know of baby boomers? They're workaholics. They live to work. And so now they couldn't put it down. And the work week, what thought was be a 4-day work week is now all the time, because they can't stop. And so, I just throw that out to say, don't be so quick to blame the younger generations because there's a lot of kind of DNA in the baby boomers that the motto of I am what I do, I live to work, that is kind of an interesting dynamic as you kind of throw that out there. So I love to hear, of course, from the baby boomers, and this was just a quick kind of snippet. Normally I do this training over 3 to 4 hours, so just kind of a quick snippet on all things parents, politics, pop culture for the baby boomers. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your perspective on, or further questions on all things baby boomers. So until next time and until the next generation, we will talk to you soon.